All right, welcome to the daily market recap for Thursday, September 4th. Congratulations to all the bulls because the S&P 500 made a new closing all-time high today. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the action of the indexes, liquid leaders, industry ETFs, then end the video with long and short setups going into tomorrow like we do with every daily recap. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And if you want my market takes throughout the trading day, along with the live stream at the market open, you can sign up for the Discord using the link below. We are extending the promotion for Labor Day until the end of this weekend, so you could give that Discord a try for $30 for a week. Getting into the indexes, we'll start with the NASDAQ. I already hinted at the S&P 500, but NASDAQ, incredible action from Tuesday's open. We had that gap down under the 50-day moving average. It really looked like we could be cracking this uptrend, and basically from the open, we found buying support, closed back over the 50, gapped up yesterday, closed at the 5, the 10, the 20-day moving average. And today we had higher highs, higher lows, closing right at the high of the day and eating into this resistance gap up here. Overall, just fantastic action out of the NASDAQ since Tuesday. Now, what I would expect is a little bit of contraction in volatility. We do have these like wide daily bars, which you tend to see like as the ETF or the stock is basing out, but we need a little bit of tight contraction before the breakout here. The S&P 500, like I said earlier, new all-time closing high, closing over that previous resistance gap here. Can't be bearish with the S&P 500 at all-time highs. Awesome action. IWO, similar, great action. We closed over the 5-day moving average, closed over the resistance gap that we had from Friday to Tuesday's gap down, and closed right near the high of the day, up 1.2%. ARKK closed over a resistance gap as well, still under the 5, the 10, the 20-day moving average, but great shakeout of the 50-day. And really zooming out, this looks like a chart ready to break to the upside and really start a new uptrend. And then IBIT as a way to track Bitcoin, some relative weakness today, a little gap down, and then closed near the low of the day under the key moving averages. So crypto has not been a leading theme for a little bit, especially Bitcoin. Ethereum is hanging in there, but Bitcoin has been weak for a little bit now. Getting into the liquid leaders, I did make one switch. I added CLS, which made a new all-time high today. Awesome action the last 3 days with the gap under the 20-day EMA, then just strong blue bars all the way up and a strong close today. We kicked out, what was it? Robinhood? No, MP. We kicked out MP today because we closed under the support gap here. Third close under the 20-day EMA. Overall, it just looks like it needs to test the 50-day moving average, maybe base out here. But while there's so many other strong stocks in the market, we'll keep our focus on what's leading. ALAB, this I'm kicking myself for not buying. It was a perfect test of the high volume close from earnings today. Tested that almost to the penny, bounced at that area, got through the 5 to 10-day moving average, this like 2-day pivot, closed right at the high of the day. Just incredible action here, finishing the day up 6.4%. BE, new closing high, another gap up, open on the low, close on the high. Probably the strongest stock in the market, has gone from $15 up to 54 in just a couple months and continues to climb the 5-day moving average during the uptrends, and then any contractions hold the 10-day moving average on a closing basis. That's a sign of a very strong stock, so it makes sense that it's in the leaders. Covered CLS. Reddit had a really ugly not gap down, excuse me, really ugly breakout to the upside yesterday, touched the resistance gap, reversed, was up 9% at that point, and then end of the day only up about 2%. But instead of following through to the downside, we actually had a gap up in really strong action to the upside, finishing the day up 4%, closed near the high of the day, back over all the moving average, and closed over 2 resistance gaps as well. So really great action out of Reddit after what looked like an ugly day yesterday. SoFi, similar strong action overall. Little gap down under yesterday's low, an oops reversal still above the 20-day EMA. Bullish engulfing candle, reclaiming the 5, the 10-day moving average, and closing this resistance gap a bit. Financials have been a really strong theme in the market, and this is one of the leading stocks in that theme. APP nearly had new all-time highs, got up to the 511 mark, and then kind of squatted a little bit. But second gap up in 2 days over the 5 day moving average. You have all the moving averages in the right order. And software is still relatively weak as a theme, and this is leading the way. So you know that once software, the ETF, gets going, this should have no problem making new highs. Google, really impressive action over the last 2 days. I kind of expected the gap up to get sold off yesterday, and we did not do that. We gapped up, had a little sell off in the morning, and then closed well. Today, similar volatility, but closing at all time highs, up another 0.7%. NVIDIA, I'm really tempted to take this off the list because it's under the 50-day moving average. We've got two gap down zones. There's other deserving stocks like CRDO and ANET. I just want to keep this on because it is kind of like the king of the market, even though it's not been participating the last couple of days and had a pretty ugly reaction on earnings. If we take out like today's low on a closing basis, I will switch it out for either ANET or CRDO. And then FUTU, a lot of Chinese stocks gap down overnight. There was some news out in China that they're going to be a little bit more stringent on their stocks. FUTU, slight gap down, but closed right at the high of the day, reclaimed the 5 day moving average, not doing anything wrong. And other stocks like TME look good. I did get stopped out of BABA today, so that's, I guess, one strike against the theme, but really like how FUTU closed, and that's still my largest Chinese position. Getting into the industry ETFs, the story today was home builders. Continues to be a leading theme in the market off the lows and just kind of hints that we're going to be getting some lower rates coming soon. Basically, from I would say from July 1st, excuse me, when we had this massive volume, huge accumulation candle, the tides really shifted at that point. We had a gap up and a secondary gap up on June 20th, but really it was that high volume close, high volume move up 4.2% that day that really kicked off this uptrend. And since then, you've just seen blue skyscrapers of accumulation volume. Any pullback comes back into a rising either 10-day or 20-day moving average. And today we got another gap up, opened on the low, closed near the high, making a new high for the year. So ITB, really strong action there. XRT, new closing high as well with AEO and that Sydney Sweeney ad, I guess doing extremely well. Another name that closed at a new 52-week high and actually like multi-year high. So another theme participating in the rally, not a bearish thing. Couple other ETFs to cover. TAN, the solar ETF, continues to consolidate at all-time highs. The solar stocks individually have traded a little choppy, and I think that's because ENPH is still under the 50-day moving average. Once that gets over the 50-day and that starts to uptrend, I think these stocks are going to have some very, very clean moves to the upside. Semiconductor ETF with CRDO acting well, with ALAB acting well up back through the 50-day moving average, closing into this resistance gap. AVGO is up about 4% after hours when I'm filming this. So chances are we're going to get a gap up on SMH. We'll test the 10-day and 20-day moving average, see if we can close above those. Obviously, any rally would be stronger with the semiconductors participating in it. So I hope we can get a nice gap up and reignite this uptrend. Financials ETF, new 52-week, actually all-time closing high, not a bearish thing. Other groups to focus on, cybersecurity still feels like it's working on a bottom here. Lower wick through the support gap, through the last 2 days lows, and then rally to close back over a different support gap. Lots of volatility here and a lot of weakness in some individual names, but overall, it still feels like this is kind of carving out a bottom here. And once we can get cybersecurity getting going, along with IGV, the software ETF, very similar structure, if we can get those two going, the market's going to get red hot here. KWeb, Chinese internet, with that gap down, still reclaimed the 10-day moving average just under the 5-day, and really structurally looks exactly how you want it to look. Nice consolidation here, accumulation the last 5 or 6 days, trading above the 10-day moving average. Then gold miners, seems like everyone's talking about that, so it's probably time for this ETF to pull back. We did get a gap down, still closed over the 5-day moving average on lighter volume, closed above the open, so it doesn't mean that this trend is over, but now that everyone's like on it, chances are we see some choppy action and some consolidation here before another move higher. Before we get into the long setups of the day, I do want to go over the NAAIM exposure. This is the active investors' actual exposure, not just their sentiment, and could not ask for a better reading. So we go from 98 on August 20th to 92, so drop just 6 points. Today, drop another 11 points over the last two or over the last week to 81%, 81.6%. Usually over 95%, that's when I start to get a little bit wary of the rally. Start to look for like stocks breaking down, pivots not breaking, like pivot failures, breakout failures, whatever you want to call it. Now that we're back to 81% and the S&P 500 is at an all-time high, it just feels like this rally can continue on. I know September has seasonal weakness, but the leaders are not acting weak. Software and cybersecurity look like they're carving out a bottom. Exposure levels are dropping while the indexes are at new highs. Seems like a recipe for kind of a FOMO rally even higher. So until we see leaders like breaking down, like if Nvidia continues to break down, if Robinhood breaks down, if Palantir from like the 50-day moving average, if those break down, that's some evidence that we can take on the bearish side and start to get a little bit more bearish to the market. But right now, I don't see any reasons to really be bearish. So getting into the long setups, Tesla. I bought this yesterday at the VWAP reclaim, or just below the VWAP reclaim on the 200-day undercut and rally. Today, inside candle, close over the 50-day, sorry, close over the 5, the 10, the 20-day moving averages on lower volume and still not super powerful compared to the indexes. But this is, look at how many higher lows there are in this pattern. So we have our first like higher low, 1, 2, 3, 4, all while holding the moving averages, all while we've seen volatility contract. From contraction comes expansion in one direction or the other. If you want to argue that Tesla's going to break to the downside, I wouldn't argue with you as long as you're using a tight stop on your short position. For me, I'm using a tight stop on my long position under yesterday's low, under the 200-day moving average. With this, just looking for a break over today's high as an entry or an add spot, and then stop would be yesterday's low. Palantir kind of hinted at this earlier, but continues to hold the support gap on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tries. So 11 times we've wicked under the support gap, under the 50-day moving average. And if there was weakness in the market, this stock probably would have fallen lower. But by the end of the day, when institutions have to make their final decisions, they're supporting the stock in this area. At some point, we're either going to have to break away from this consolidation to the upside or the downside. Similar to Tesla, I think you can argue in either direction. If we gap down and take out today's low, chances are this does break to the downside. But just because we've held this the entire time, because software is working on a bottom, I think through today's high is buyable with the stop at today's low. And then the nice part about that is your stop is under the 50-day moving average as well. So chances are you won't get stopped out randomly. APP leader in the software space, just looking for a pullback into the the low of this like kind of secondary gap, like a breakout retest here at 481.80-ish area. Ideally, that happens over the next couple days, so you can have the 10-day moving average catch up, and it's not as extended short term. But if it happens tomorrow, I'll probably still try to put on a little bit of size there. ANET, I think this could be on the leaders list. Personally, I don't trade this stock super well. But I'll be looking for a pullback into the 10-day moving average, the gap zone low, and kind of a breakout retest at 137.40 as a potential entry. Stop would be under yesterday's low. ALAB, I think today was the buy point. I think I missed it. But if we do have any market pressure where the indexes come down, maybe we have like a weak Friday, weak Monday, coming back into that area and a higher low overall, like we have the low on August 20th, we have the low on September 2nd, a higher low into the 20-day moving average and HVC area would be a really good spot to manage risk. Again, probably not happening tomorrow, but over the next couple of days, watch that area. Net's probably the leader in software cybersecurity. Really good action today, undercutting the 20-day moving average and then closing right near the high of the day, back through the key moving averages. Now just looking for a test of the 205.25 area, that support gap, that 10-day moving average, potential entry versus today's low. Shark Ninja, probably my favorite like product company. I've got their blender, got their coffee maker. I'm sure there's other things my wife had. I think the vacuum is Shark Ninja and really great customer service. So I want to like the stock. Now we're actually seeing really positive action. So now I'm laser focused on trying to get a position in this. Today, awesome close over a couple different resistance gaps, close over the key moving averages. This might actually be an all-time high close. It is. So all-time closing high for Shark Ninja. Now just looking for a pullback into the gap zone, into that 10-day moving average around 118. Stop would be under the 20-day moving average in the previous gap zone here at 116.70. American Eagle, highest volume ever, up 38%, closed right near the high of the day. This really does feel like ANF 2.0. And if we take a look at ANF as that comparison, zoom out, go back to 2022. It wasn't like the first gap up that we got going, but it was kind of the secondary one that we had the highest volume ever, closed up 31%. The next couple days, there was still some volatility around that HVC area. So kind of similar to what we saw with ANF, where it was like one day down, second day consolidation, third day pop, consolidation, pullback. That's kind of what I'm looking for with AEO. Sorry, AEO here. It was an awesome move today, highest volume ever. I think you can take it with it like a gap up retest of the high volume close. But I would rather see like some weakness tomorrow, then some tightness, and then back through the HVC as a potential entry versus the low of that pullback. But again, ANF, like it went 200, 280% without testing the 20-day EMA. So retailers, they can trend really, really well. Next, we have Next Tracker, NXT. One of the solar names that I've got on here, I've got two. IPO in the solar space, no gap downs, new all-time high closing price, or right at it. Not sure exactly, but you get the gist. Looking for a move on strength through today's high as a potential entry. Stop would be the 10-day moving average. Or if we see some weakness in the indexes, weakness in the solar ETF overall, that 10-day moving average and gap zone at 67-ish dollars, that's a spot that I would be looking to size up. Same with SCDG. We do have a little bit of a resistance gap here, but I love the shakeout on Tuesday. Good action on Wednesday and Thursday. Just to break into 52-week highs is the potential ad spot. And like I said earlier, once end phase gets over that 50-day moving average, I think all the solar names are going to get a lot easier to trade. Right now, there's still a lot of volatility, a lot of wiki action in the price action. But if end phase tomorrow can get through the 50-day, I think stocks like NXT and SDDG get very, very attractive. And then two thinner stocks to watch, AEHR. This is a semiconductor name, really great action after basically since their earnings. Nice consolidation, gapped up, had a 35% day. Still a lot of volatility here, so would watch for a pullback into the HVC to play versus today's low in the 10-day moving average. But this is a name that it can make very, very quick moves. Has already gone from 6 to 26 and does not look like it's too late in the uptrend. And then probably a super speculative name, LIDR. This name had a big move up 158% on July 24th. Since then, like had it 2 more days of railing, but now is really getting tight with the 20-day EMA. Today we had an undercut and reclaim of the support gap low. Close kind of middle of the range on lower volume. On this, I'm just looking for strength through today's high as a potential entry. Stop would be today's low or the low of tomorrow, depending on how you want to play like a performance boosting setup. Now to the short side. First, we have HIMS. Awesome action today out of HIMS. We had a first test of the 200-day moving average on a gap down. Followed it with a gap up yesterday. So an island gap at the 200-day moving average. Usually you see another day or two of rallying from that point. And we basically saw it up 7% yesterday, up 8% today, and a strong close into this resistance gap. Now we're looking for a third day to really push through the 50-day moving average, through the gap zone, through $50 as a potential uppercut and failure at that level to short against the high of the day. ARM, one of the weaker semiconductors out there. So if semiconductors, say NVIDIA breaks to the downside, this is a name that I would be looking to short versus like NVIDIA, which I don't think is just going to like collapse very quickly. A name that's under the declining 50-day moving average, under the declining 20, at the 200-day simple moving average, which is flat to declining. Is looking for an uppercut and fail of the 20-day EMA and the resistance gap here as a potential entry. And then the stop would be the previous rally high. QUBT continues to sit on the support gap. So I think you could say, Nick, this is just consolidating, getting nice and tight. It's going to break to the upside. I would not argue with you if you want to play to the long side, as long as you use like today's low as your stop. But this is a name that's already like 33% off its highs. It's not as strong as some of the other quantum names. Didn't make new highs like off the lows of the pullback this year. So through today's low is a potential short. Today's high would be the stop on that. That would align with the 5-day moving average. But again, if you want to say go long because the support gap has been holding, I wouldn't argue with you. SOGP, this is one of those speculative names that you really want to be careful shorting. I kind of think like I shouldn't put these in the video, but some people do short them and do it really well. So I want to put that on your radar. But from June 6th, this has rallied from $1 to $36. We still need, in my opinion, like a gap up, a ton of volume to come in on this. I still think like this is catching people's radars just now. So might be a day or two away, like a day or two, like big extensions away from a nice like risk reward standpoint. But if we get a gap up tomorrow and then a green to red move or lose the daily VWAP, I'll be watching for a potential short versus the high of the day. It's not going to be a huge position. It's going to be a performance boosting trade. And I do think we're probably a day or two away still on it, but one to keep your eye on. DFDV, this was on the short watch list coming into the day. We got the gap down, got the move through today's low. So that was like the A plus entry. Now we're still sitting on like a secondary shelf at 1520 ish area. So through $15 is another like add on short. I wouldn't take this as much size as I would have taken like through yesterday's low today because we are already extended to the downside. But it does feel like this is ready to just completely unwind here. And then ZEPP, kind of think that this still needs some time. We had a red close over the 5-day moving average, which is still not a bearish thing in my mind. It's more of a consolidation candle than, hey, it's time to break to the downside. What I'd be looking for is a breakthrough today's low and yesterday's low under the 5-day moving average as a potential short spot versus whatever the high of the day is, or the daily VWAP to keep risk tight. I keep going back to the NEGG setup because I think it's going to play out kind of similar where we have like a couple of red closes under the 5-day. Then we rally up into that resistance gap, trap a bunch of more buyers at extremely high prices, and then just drop it from 130 down to like 30. So with the ZEPP, how that would play out is like we would move lower, then rally up into this resistance gap at 53, build in a lot of people at that price, and then start breaking to the downside. But I'll be watching the loss of the 5-day to see if we like really accelerate to the downside as a potential entry. But with these names, you can't stay stubborn. Like if it comes back to your entry price, I would probably just cut it because it shows you it has the ability to run from $2 up to $50, and it can go from 50 to 100 really quick, like we saw with NEGG. So that's going to be the daily market recap for Thursday, September 4th. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And once again, we are running that Labor Day promotion where you can try the Discord out for a week for just $30. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can click the link below and give it a shot. Have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you guys in this weekend's video.